Hello YouTube, and welcome to the next route learning video. We're now going to be continuing where we left off earlier on the new story of Forest Rail route, which is available from Just Trains. So we're playing the second part of the scenario we drove earlier, which is called Late Return. So this is Late Return Part 2, and we're going to be driving from Naraka Matsui through Shikwa to Matsui, and then we'll be calling at Kisaragi and Namara to finish at Matsuhara. Now, I hope I pronounced those places right, but unfortunately I probably didn't, and I got them embarrassingly wrong. So again, like I said in the last video, if you're familiar with Japan, Japanese culture, or the Japanese language, then please do let me know how to pronounce these places. I will flash up the place names as captions on this video so that you can see how they're actually spelt. So the total distance for this journey is 23.9 kilometers, which is around 14.5 miles. Our attraction once again for this journey is the Kisaragi 750 diesel multiple unit. I'm not sure of the exact technical specs of this train, but I can say that our maximum speed limit on this journey will be 80 kilometers per hour, which is around 50 miles per hour, and we will be able to reach that. Departing Naraka, the starting speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour, and we've got around 3.5 kilometers to go to the next stop, which is Shikwa. Just after we've crossed the point we're now passing over, the gradient will start to get steeper, and we're going to be going uphill on a 3.7% grade. There are actually a lot of steep grades on this route, sometimes as steep as 5%. When going uphill, this severely limits our ability to accelerate and our maximum top speed. And when going downhill, it gives the train a tendency to seriously run away with you. So you've got to be very careful with using the brakes to ensure that you make a controlled descent. Now that we've reached 60 kilometers per hour, the gradient has temporarily leveled out, so I've just idled the power to allow the train to coast. The gradient will be going up again shortly at 2.1%, so I will be reapplying power in a second. So I'm now going to reapply power up to 100%. As you can see, we're doing this journey at night on a late evening train. This route, however, during the daytime is when it really shines, especially in the summer. The colours are very vivid and have an almost fairy tale-like feel, which is what I believe the developers of the route were intending with a name such as the Story of Forest Rail. So I do actually plan on covering this route in the daytime in the summer. There are two routes in this package which you can take. You've got the branch line, which I started in the last video, and I'm continuing here, and then we've got the main line, which we will be joining near the end of this journey. So I will make the video in the daytime in the summer covering the main line. The gradient has now levelled out, so I'm just going between idle and a low power setting to try and maintain speed. As we see the buildings coming up in front of us that we can see now, we know that we're getting close to our stop, so I will now idle the power, and we will actually apply the brakes for our stop on this right-hand curve. So a couple of seconds into the curve, I'll now apply the brakes. You can now see the platform just ahead. As we're in a single coach train, I'm going to try and stop in the middle of the platform, as there's a gap in the fence which appears to be the entrance. Departing from Huga, Shikwa, the starting speed limit is 60 km per hour, and we've got just over 6.5 kilometers to go to the next stop, which is Matsui. We now have a warning for a speed reduction to 50 km per hour. I'm now going to shut off power and allow the train to coast. The 50 speed limit is just coming up at the end of this bridge here. We will shortly be going into a tunnel. And at that point we will be going uphill once again on a gradient of 2.9%. So I'm going to need to use quite a lot of power so that we can maintain speed through here. So I've now temporarily gone into full power. As we leave this tunnel, we will shortly be entering a second tunnel. In fact, it's a series of 4 tunnels in a row here. So, correction, 5 tunnels in a row. So the gradient is now shallowing to up at 2%, so I've cut the power a bit. I'm going to have to try and mess around with the throttle now so I don't lose too much or gain too much speed. Towards the end of this second tunnel, the gradient does shallow, so once again I've got to gradually reduce the power settings. I'm keeping a close eye on the speedometer, so I can see what the power settings I'm using are actually doing to our speed. Now that we've left the second tunnel, the gradient is going up steeper again, up to 2.9%. So I'm using a high power setting now. The gradient has levelled off a bit, so I'm now reducing the power accordingly. I'm watching our speed carefully. The third tunnel is now coming up. This is only a very short tunnel, and the gradient is now as steep as 3.3%. So once again I've gone back into full power to try and maintain our speed. And as we round this bridge, you can see the fourth tunnel just coming up. Notice how even in full power we're losing some speed here due to the steepness of the gradient. Leaving this tunnel at the end, the speed limit goes up to 70 km per hour. Entering the 70 km per hour speed zone, and we've now got around 2 kilometers to go to our next stop. The gradient has shallowed here a bit. I'm staying in full power to bring us up to a higher speed. We're now entering the fifth and final tunnel before our stop. In this tunnel the gradient does shallow considerably, so as we reach 70 km per hour I will shut off power, allow the train to coast and see what happens to our speed. As we leave this fifth tunnel we will then be around 650 metres from our next stop. So now we've left the fifth tunnel, I'm going to leave the power in idle, and our braking point will be coming up shortly for our stop. As we're on this right hand curve now, the X sign just coming up on the left is our braking point. It's actually a sign warning us of a level crossing, but it seems to be about the right distance from the station. Departing Matsui, the starting speed limit is 70 km per hour. And we've got just under 7.5 kilometres to go to the next stop, which is Kisaragi. As we reach this point, we're now at the start of a downhill gradient. In fact, there's a lot of steep downhill gradients between here and the next stop. The initial downhill gradient here is 2.5%, so I've now idled the power to allow the train to coast up to the speed limits. We now have a warning for a speed limit reduction to 50 kilometers per hour. As we're only doing just above 50 now, I will temporarily brake, just for a moment. You can see the 50 kilometer per hour speed boards here now. And now we go through the first of another series of tunnels. The gradient here has now shallowed to down at 1.2%, which will cause us to increase in speed, but only very slowly. So I've released the brakes to allow us to get back up towards 50 kilometers per hour, and then I'll reapply the brakes for speed control. As we enter this second tunnel just here, the gradient steepens to down at 2%. So I'm leaving the brakes on for now. If the speed limit drops to 40 kilometers per hour, I will release. It looks to me like the speed is slowly starting to climb again, though the gradient does shallow in this tunnel as we get towards the end. Leaving the second tunnel behind, we're now going on a much steeper downward gradient of as steep as 3.8%, so I've increased the brakes for speed control. The gradient here does now shallow a bit as we go on this very large bridge over the forest down below. We're actually on a spiral bridge where we will go through a tunnel. If you look to our right, you can see a tunnel down there. So we're actually going to go round and then go under ourselves, go under this section of track that we're currently going over. So on this bridge, the gradient is downhill at 1.2%, though it is quickly going to increase as we head towards the end of the bridge. The gradient in this tunnel is going to increase to 2.5% down, and then shortly after leaving the tunnel, the gradient will be as steep as 4.3%. Now see ahead of us the piece of track that we were going over a minute ago, so we're now going under the track that we were going over before. And and the speed limit is shortly going to be going back up to 70 kilometers per hour. We're now passing the 70 speed board, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the brakes and just allow the train to coast up to the 70 speed limit. So I'm now using the brakes once again for speed control. The gradient here gets as steep as 4.8% downhill. As you can see, even though I've got the brakes on, I am still gaining a little bit of speed, so I've just applied the brakes a little bit harder. And we're now losing a bit of speed again. So it's just trying to get this balancing act right with the brake settings along here, which is the real challenge. Speed limit is now going up to 80 kilometers per hour, which is around 50 miles per hour, and at this point we're just under 2 kilometers from our next stop. We are now close to our next stop, less than a kilometre. You can now see lights ahead, and so as we're on this right hand curve, I'm now going to apply the brakes to slow down. There is a speed limit of 45 kilometres per hour as we cross some points to the left just here. Here are the points, and you can see the platform just coming up. Departing Kisaragi, the starting speed limit is 80 kilometers per hour, and we've got around 3.5 kilometers to go to the next stop, which is Namara. Now about to start going downhill once again, so at this point I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast up towards the speed limit. This downhill gradient is as steep as 4.2%. The Gradient has now levelled slightly, so I'm just keeping an eye on the speedometer. If we stop gaining speed, then I will apply a bit of power to bring us up towards the speed limit. Gradient has now levelled and we were just losing a little bit of speed, so I've just applied power temporarily. So we're now about to start going downhill once again. So I've once again idled the power. And we should start to see an increase in our speed, which is now happening. Now that you can see the buildings ahead of us with the lights, we know that we're nearing our stop. Joining us from the left now is the main line, which I mentioned earlier, which I am going to do a video on in the daytime. So I'll be going the opposite direction. From where this journey ends will be the start point of that video, and we'll take the full length of the main line. So here is our stop. So we want to aim to stop near the end of the roof just here. I'm going to stop just past this bench here. And now we're in about the right place. Departing Namara, the starting speed limit is 80 km per hour, and we've got around 3 kilometers to go to our final stop, which is Matsuhara. at these two white posts here, they're signifying we're about to be going downhill quite steeply, so I'm now applying the brakes to ensure I've got full control of the speed. Actually going downhill as steep as 4.2%. The gradient has now shallowed, so I'm now going to give us some power. We will shortly be now going uphill on a grade of 1.4%. Gradient has now levelled off again, so I'm once again going to idle the power. We're now not far from our stop. You can now see a single yellow signal just coming up ahead, so I'm going to apply some braking. We will be crossing some points to the left, which will be the next set of points. There's no actual speed limit over the points, but to me it seems too fast to take them at anything more than about 40 kilometers per hour. So I'm going to aim to stop just around this cross sign just coming up on the right. Arrival at Matsuhara. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the video.